Welcome down to my 9-foot homemade oak bar. Pour yourself a cold one. You are listening to Bucs in the Basement. My name's Chris, and Craig here is the biggest Pirates fan you'll ever meet. Let's talk Pirates baseball now. Welcome to Bucs in the Basement.
Now I see the changes in this town. They change, they say one thing, but then the next day it's different. They change, but they don't know what they want. All they do is change. Going left, going right, travel day, travel night. That's where we'll go. No excuses, no goodbyes, no one cries, no more lies. We'll never know.
Alright guys, by the time you listen to this, more than likely, pitchers and catchers will have reported a lot of the guys are there, but one of the guys that I know that is definitely there and has checked in already, because I saw him posting pictures, bragging about he's on the beach, while we're up here, up in Pittsburgh, even though guess what? Today, it was almost 70 degrees, so we can't complain too much. Bringing in, for the first time, from the Post-Gazette, Jason Mackey, at JMackeyPG. Jason, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. I should have posted, and thank you for having me, Craig. It's a pleasure to be here for the first time. I should have posted a picture from the day before where I went to Pirate City and I had the most god-awful view because they said they were going to open at the fans, didn't open at the fans, and then I know you've been there before, but anybody who hasn't, not necessarily the quad around the tower, like the gravel walkway going toward it, and they're on the opposite field. So anyway, the view today from the beach was glorious, but the view 2 days ago from Pirate City where I couldn't see crap was less glorious. Looking forward to getting back there on Wednesday for the first day of pitchers and catchers and seeing some real ball.
Yeah, and I think I posted the other day, everybody posts the stuff after the Super Bowl and says, baseball is here. And I said baseball is not here until some of our beat reporters start posting pictures of players working out. Like that's when.
Oh, I can't wait! I can't wait to post the most because they don't let us anywhere near the bullpens, and so you can look for a picture of me or something that I'll tweet tomorrow from like 75 yards away through 3 fences, and something you cannot possibly decipher what's going on in them throwing bullpens. It's going to be great.
You're like, I think that's Mitch Keller. Maybe it's Mike Burrows. I'm not really sure who it is. But, Jason, you've been writing a ton. I mean, normally you write a ton, but over these last, 4, 5, 6 days, a week, getting us ready for this. And I wanted to go to those. I wanted to go to it was the Pirates Primer series. And something I pulled out of those was position battles.
Mm-hmm.
And the first one that came to me was, and it's something that we've all talked about, and everybody that was a Pirates fan during those early 2010s is so excited that Kutch is back. But the one thing you said is something we've kind of all been saying is that, they make that acquisition of Connor Joe, and then by getting Kutch in there, it kind of starts to crowd that infield a little bit. And even somewhat to a degree the DH of Choi, Santana, and now you've got Kutch in there. So what's your, view on, what's going on there in the outfield at PNC Park this year?
Yeah, and believe me, I would not undo the Kutch signing for anything. I think it's a tremendous move. You never turn down that opportunity. I love every bit of it. But it's not a great fit. It really isn't. And, I mean, it's a great fit because he's Kutch, and I think he can still play, and it's worth its weight in gold. But it really convolutes some things, in my opinion. I mean, you look at Kutch being in there. So, okay, Reynolds is going to play every day. Sawinski's going to play every other day, maybe every day if he earns himself that role, which I think he certainly can. I think Connor Joe is going to need at-bats, and obviously Kutch is going to play. Those are your 4 outfield spots. You've probably got 1 starter and a 3-man rotation for 2 spots with Kutch going to DH. We'll see what happens with Choi and Santana. I think you want to keep both of those bats in the lineup. But what that does basically is knocks, G1 Bay down a little bit. His only available position is second base. That probably puts Tucapita Marcano in AAA, which then further clouds their infield mix because you want to be getting meaningful reps for guys like Nick Gonzalez or Leo Verpagero and try to develop them a little bit more. There's only so much stuff you can do with Marcano. And frankly, Craig, I was watching G1 Bay hit the other day. My goodness, does he look good. I mean, this kid can really be a fun player, somebody that helps them, speed for days. I just don't know where he's going to play. And I haven't brought up Rodolfo Castro yet. I don't know what you can necessarily do with him. He theoretically could earn the starting second base job. And in all of this, you also need a backup shortstop. Literally, O'Neal Cruz is not going to play 162. You have to have somebody to play over there. Bay's probably a more natural fit. Marcano hasn't played a ton over there, but probably could give them a split. But anyway, that's sort of the trickle down that you get when you bring in McCutchen, and it crowds the outfield, it crowds the infield. Again, wouldn't trade any of the problems for anything, but some other stuff they have to consider.
Yeah, and the other part is, I mean, you put Miguel Andujar down in AAA, and you also have there, I mean, there's that outfield depth again. Like, and like I said, I don't want to pretend like depth is a bad thing, but there's a lot of decisions to be made. I mean, if you go down to AAA, you have, Caden Smith and Jigba. You have Travis Swaggerty, who we haven't gotten to see that much. You have Ryan Vilade. I haven't learned how to pronounce it yet because I honestly thought he would be gone at this point in time, and it was no offense to him, but just I saw him, kind of being like that. I think it was like Troy Stokes Jr., who ended up playing a little bit, but you kind of picked him up, but as stuff cycled through that, he may end up getting pushed down, to that AAA spot. You still have, a Cal Mitchell in there. There's a lot of depth that this all kind of trickles down to.
There really is, and I don't know how you sort that stuff out. I mean, you could have two different outfields at AAA Indy and still not have enough spots for everybody covered. Like, you're not giving guys enough of a look. You're going to have to then drop them down to Altoona, and at that point, I don't know what you're going to do with them. Is Caden Smith and Jigba going to get anything out of playing at AA? Probably not. Is Travis Swaggerty? Probably not. You're not doing the best thing for them at this point. It's a weird position to be in, where they have too many outfielders for not enough spots, but not enough of these guys are good enough to play in the major leagues. They could even try trading some of these guys. I don't think they're going to get much for them. It's not like you can take Travis Swaggerty and flip him and get some premium return. He's flirting with being DFA'd. If they would DFA him tomorrow, I don't think people would bat an eyelash. You wish they were maybe like, I don't know, pitching prospects or I'm trying to think of how they could address another need, maybe a catcher, although that's getting kind of crowded behind, Endy and Henry anyway. It's just an odd place. I mean, I know this, Craig, when I think about this and how this is going to play out, if guys hit, they'll find a place for them. And that goes for Miguel Andujar, that goes for Smith and Jigba, that goes for Sawinski, Joe, McCutchen, anybody. The offensively productive guys, they'll stick around.
Yeah, and you mentioned Smith and Jigba again, and a lot of people noticed he was kind of at all of the stuff that was going on for the season ticket holders not in place of Pirates Fest, but maybe, I don't know, it was in conjunction with what would have been Pirates Fest. We usually see the season ticket holders, and then the next day Pirates Fest opens, but Smith and Jigba's there, and he's talking, and everything's going on, and my thought was, is this, the push for a player, or is this, hey, he came in to work out to see what the injury was like in Pittsburgh, and now he's here, and it's nothing against him, because he didn't really get a shot, and he didn't really play bad in AAA. So, I mean, what are you thinking about that, Jason?
I don't think they would do it, and I've thought about this too. It's an interesting point. I thought about it in, what the heck was it, December, when they brought guys in. Like, they had Brubaker in town, Burrows,
Colin Holderman,
Chase DeYoung, Colin Holderman. you wouldn't jerk guys around with events like this if you weren't going to make good use of them. And that doesn't mean that Smith and Jigba is going to start with the major league club. I think the chances of that happen are like slim and none. But I don't think it's a guy who's on the verge of getting DFA'd either. And you know why? You know why? It's the same reason why they traded for Connor Joe. They very clearly have a type. They have a couple types, but I mean, guys that can play multiple positions, and then guys that maybe sacrifice power a little bit but get on base and see a lot of pitches. And Smith and Jigba does that. Like a Cal Mitchell, he's not their type. He's not going to fit their profile. Mason Martin, not their type. Not going to fit their profile. But I can see why they want to ride it out with Caden Smith and Jigba. I think they think something's there. Even Travis Swaggerty, probably not their type, to name another player in this conversation that we're having. But I like Smith and Jigba. He's a good kid. He's a confident kid. Like, he's got this. It's not cockiness, just a likable swagger to him. I don't think he's overmatched at all at this level. And I do think there's more there. So I see what they're doing, but it's still, man, even if you would cross the names off the list that I mentioned, you still got like 7 more. I don't know how you're going to get through all of these things and dole out playing time appropriately.
Yeah, and it's definitely tough in there. And then when you were talking, it was something. It was actually number 2 I had written down from your Pirates Primer series was Rodolfo Castro at second base, and it was something that I had brought up. Would have been 2 weeks ago when I spoke with Rob Biertempfel from The Athletic, and you spelled it out perfectly. Is that Rodolfo Castro against righties has a 642 OPS, a 29.5 K rate. Against breaking stuff, he has a 179 average and a 49.2 whiff rate. And that was something I pointed out at the first parts, is that coming up, I mean, some guys, people want to jump to platoon people because they struggle, when they first come up to the majors, but that's not their profile in the minors. I mean, that's kind of been Castro's profile. When he was in the minors, he was about 250 points below in OPS when he was batting right-handed, to left-handed. And he was like creeping towards 300 in the majors. So people are kind of crowning Castro as like the full-time second baseman. I mean, is that the case?
I'd be stunned if he was based on that profile. If that holds, where he only really hits from one side of the plate, and I mean, I say only hits from one side of the plate. I guess if he, that's one better than some players on this team have had success at. But like his defense wasn't great. If he struggles against breaking stuff again, I think that's probably grounds for a platoon situation, because you need to get time for other guys, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I really don't. I mean, I think I look at their bullpen situation and like how I would sketch out their roster at this point, and I'm not sure I see a scenario where I would keep G1 Bay and Tucapita Marcano. Like, I just think there's probably other guys that would warrant playing time, and somebody would just be sitting there. Probably if you're going to juggle Castro and Bay, that's okay. And whomever's not playing as your bench guy, I don't know. I go back and forth. I guess you could carry the extra infielder. I just worry about the pitching, and I probably want an extra pitcher. Anyway, if that's the profile that we're getting with Castro, I think you're probably going to be willing to give out playing time to other guys. Now, if he's going to solve one or two of those things or hit for a bunch of power, I think they'd be willing to commit the playing time to him. But he's got to get better in some areas, and he's just been too darn inconsistent for me. And, what we've seen out of him so far, he can be absolutely terrific, and then it just shuts off for 3 weeks.
Yeah, and I always think, like, he's still a young guy, and, maybe he can work his way into that. Maybe, the layoff in 2020, even though he was the alternate site, may have hurt him a little bit. There's a lot of stuff I'm thinking of, but when we're thinking about young guys, we're definitely not thinking about our catching situation right now, because Austin Hedges is not a young man. Plawecki, who we just signed, is not a young man. But we have a couple of young men that are ready to come up there. So, I mean, Hedges is the number one. And we all kind of are maybe like just accepting that, and that's fine. But then you have Heineman, you have DeLay, now you have Plawecki, and you have Endy sitting right there. Are we like kind of jumping the gun with Endy a little bit, and just
Yes.
can we kind of wait for that?
My opinion, yes. I think people are a little bit too eager to put that on a young man at this point. I think the world of Endy. I think the world of Henry Davis. I mean, the way I ultimately see this shaking out is probably more Henry as the catcher, and they bounce Endy around the field a little bit. You know, if you have 7 games in a week, 6 games, like I think Henry's going to catch probably 4 or 5, and Endy's going to catch 1 or 2. I'm okay with that. And Endy can bounce out to the outfield, play some second base, whatever. But to do that right now, I'm not in a hurry. I'm really not. Like, it's not super too motivated. It's nothing other than I think catching at the major league level is really hard. And these guys, I mean, Henry Davis has 0 games of experience at AAA. It's okay to let him catch at that level and get used to handling pitchers there. I don't have a problem with that. Endy has seen, 12 games there, something like that. I'm sure I'm off a little bit, but I mean, it's not much. Let him catch there. Let him get comfortable. I want a catcher, when they come up to the major leagues, to be in total command of what they're doing. And that means physically, that means mentally, that means preparation. I don't want Endy's offense being sacrificed because his head is swimming defensively. Like, I don't know if people are thinking about that. Like, when you're a major league catcher and the number of places that you were dragged to go to this meeting and go to this meeting and remember this information and be given this piece of paper. Oh, we have pregame defensive work. Go down here. We're doing blocking balls, infield at this time, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, I've watched Jacob Stallings do it. I watched Roberto Perez or Tyler Heineman, whomever do it. It's a big ask. There's a reason why these guys don't hit that much, and nobody really cares. I'm just not tasking those guys with that at this point. Like, get comfortable in AAA, hit, and when that happens, there should theoretically be a place for you at the Major League Club.
If you ever see me out and about in Pittsburgh, you will always recognize me, and not just because of the white beard, but also because of the Y that is always on top of my head, the hat I always wear. The Yins brand, proud partners with Bucs in the Basement. 3 dynasties, 1 brand, Yins. Finally, 1 brand to rep all black and gold. Follow at Shop Yins for new merch drops and giveaways. Order online at www.shopyins, the emphasis on the 2 Z's, high quality comfort, lightweight materials, a new modern look for the black and gold, made for Yins by a Yinzer. The back of the rotation right now, I mean, everybody, when we signed Vince Velasquez, you thought that might have been the only signing. And it wasn't. I mean, Rich Hill came in, but now we still have Velasquez, who was a starter at the beginning of the season for the White Sox, who were a World Series, thought contender at that point in time. What are you thinking about? And I wrote this down as Velasquez versus Ortiz and Oviedo. Like, how does this rotation shake out? And a lot of people are throwing out the 6-man rotation. What are your thoughts on all this?
I'm sorry. No, I mean, I don't see how Ortiz starts at the big club. I just don't. I mean, if you go numbers wise, like, you're not going to. I mean, obviously Mitch is going to start, right? Romanzi's going to start. Rich Hill's on the team's going to start. Vince Velasquez on a team going to start. You're not going to bump JT Brubaker. Where's 5 right now? I talked to Oscar over the offseason not too long ago, one of my big questions for him is like, what's up with Johan Oviedo? Is he still a starter? Because I could see him kind of being a bullpen guy, tweener guy, piggyback, whatever. He said, oh, no, he's still a starter. Okay, well, if Oviedo's a starter, what does he really have to gain in AAA? He came up here, made, 7 starts, ended up pitching really well toward the end of the year. I don't understand why he wouldn't be back with the big club. So that's 6. At that point, you've got to bump somebody, and I don't know who the heck they'd bump. I don't think that even makes sense for them to bump anybody. So I think the way I see this going, honestly, is probably rolling with 6. You keep Ortiz down. You commit a certain amount of starts to Hill or Velasquez. If there's poor performance, you could shift one of them to the bullpen. If there's not, the biggest crime you've committed is having Luis Ortiz tear up AAA, and you probably monitor his innings and don't throw a ton on there. And I don't think that's the worst thing. I'm not in a hurry. Just like I'm okay waiting on Endy and Henry, I'm okay waiting for Burrows and Priester. They haven't had a ton of experience or hardly any experience at that level. And then as guys sort of exit, maybe you trade Rich Hill or maybe somebody gets hurt, then you can bring people up. But if the scenario is that they have, too many quality arms for not enough spots, I would be thrilled to have that problem.
Yeah, and that's where, I kind of, when we came out of the pandemic, all of the minor league teams, when they finally came out of it, were using 6-man rotations.
Yep.
And they've kind of gone away from that. I mean, except for Bradenton last year, they were, the only ones that kind of stuck with that just because they had so many guys down there. But even looking, like we talk about when you bump it down to AAA, I mean, you have, like you already noticed, if you put Ortiz down there, and then you have Priester, then you have Carmen Majinski, then you have Kyle Nicholas. What's going on with Cody Bolton? I mean, there are so many guys that are starting to just kind of bump their way up towards the major leagues. And we keep on saying this isn't a problem. And believe me, I would rather have more than less. But at some point in time, I mean, some of this has to break out. And I mean, I just read some stuff and saw some stuff on JT Brubaker, a guy that I like JT, but is there going to be a move? Is there going to be somebody that's moved to the bullpen beforehand? I mean, I know they have a big stretch in April, but towards the beginning of the season, a lot of times, it ends up being almost like a 4/5-man rotation.
I know. A lot of off days. Yeah, the way the schedule falls, I mean, it would be tough to get 6 early on, no doubt. Brew's another one. I don't know what you saw or what's out there. I know he did a podcast with his trade guy, Turner Gibbons. I think that's his name. I talked to him and quoted him in a mailbag the other day. But anyway, I think Brew's in a really interesting situation where they're giving him a chance to stay a starter. And I don't think his work has been that bad, frankly. He made 28 starts last year, 4.69 ERA, struck out more than a batter per inning. The stiff was really good. Legit numbers that show this guy can be a starting pitcher. Now, the sinker slider is really good and profiles quite good at the back end of a bullpen. But so basically what they did with Brew this offseason, started screwing around with his curveball more. He's going to throw that. Tweaking his changeup a little bit more. And there's the possibility he comes out of this thing with 4 or 5 pitches. I mean, if that's his mix, he's a starter. If that flops, if he starts getting hit hard, then middle of the year, yeah, maybe they think about moving him to a bullpen role where he's predominantly sinker slider. I don't think there's, that probably wouldn't be a bad thing. It almost reminds me of Chad Kuhl a little bit, where he could pick up velocity and, really just hammer a secondary spin pitch in there and throw strikes and be done with it. But, not right away, and that's not going to help us in the first month of the season. That's why I think that it's just it's a really funky thing. And I mean, honestly, if you don't feel like you can get through with 6, then you just have to kind of tell Oviedo to eat it, I think. Or work him out of the bullpen. You commit to doing some sort of piggyback. I mean, maybe the Pirates could start doing something like, somebody gets a shortened start once through, and then like they're paired with Oviedo. I'm not sure. That's a different sort of innovative way to look at a 5/6 man rotation. And then you've got a guy like, okay, well, maybe we don't have to shorten this start because, Keller was garbage this time out and Oviedo had to cover 4 1/3. Something like that, it sort of works out. But, it's tough to plan for these things, right? I mean, just sort of put together some contingency plans and see how guys pitch.
Yeah, and right now, I mean, everybody, in some ways, like Chris and I here at Bucs in the Basement, we have always said the bullpen is built last. And people for the past few years, and I'm not saying you, Jason, I'm just saying like people in general have like pushed the bullpen, as, this is what's doing really well. We have, all these guys that do stuff. And I keep looking at the bullpen and it just kind of concerns me because, I mean, I love David Bednar, but he's ended up getting injured the past 2 years. I mean, Will Crow ended up getting, completely worn out. Everybody's saying, Yeri De Los Santos, who had minimal innings, is going to come out and be this guy. Colin Holderman, who he traded for, who performed very well in New York, is going to come out. And, he's going to be this guy. We got, the elephant in Yarlin Garcia. There's all these different things that are going to happen. And to me, it still sounds like a lot of question marks.
Well, it is. I mean, I don't think you're wrong. I don't disagree with you. But when I look at this, the solution isn't for anybody to be a superhero. The solution is to have enough guys who are capable so the workload is shared. Bednar doesn't need to be getting 6 outs in a game because they don't have a setup man.
Absolutely not.
If he, that was fun to watch, and we were all naive looking at it. We all got swept up in like how fun and powerful and look at David Bednar dropping F-bombs on TV. You know what? In hindsight, it was stupid. It was stupid. It probably got him hurt, and it just doesn't need to happen. And Will Crow is a tough kid, and I like his demeanor, and he goes about his business the right way. He doesn't need to pitch every game. He shouldn't be pitching every game. You throw Garcia in there, I like that. I think Holderman can be a really good reliever. Right there, that's 3 guys who should be able to bridge a gap to David Bednar. That's enough of a shared workload. And especially then, take it to the next step. Look at what they have in, guys earlier in the game. I'm talking like Dwayne Underwood, Robert Stevenson. Just the last point I was going to make is, like, Underwood got overexposed last year when he's pitching the 8th inning. He's not an eighth inning guy. But if he's covering the 5th and 6th, or maybe just the 6th and 7th, something like that, to get to the back end guys, totally different conversation.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, it's going to be fun to watch, but there's 2 more things I got to ask you here, man, before we run out of time here a little bit. And the first thing is how crucial is Bryan Hayes' offense to how this team takes a step forward? And second part, I guess, would be how much is even possible out of Bryan Hayes' offense?
Okay, so the first part, I mean, I'm going. My answer would be something like this: not minor. You need the guy that you're paying that money to, and I mean, his defense is exemplary. It's not taking a shot at his defense, but like, you need something there. You need something out of that position, because I mean, they could find a third baseman on the street who's not going to defend as well as Bryan Hayes, obviously, but could potentially hit as well as him. And the frustrating part for me and probably others, including Bryan, is it's in there. It's absolutely in there. It's just a matter of staying healthy. I like what he's done this offseason. He's bulked up. I'm sure you've talked about that plenty, but, we've all seen the videos, heard whispers about his work in the gym. And, I mean, it's not like Bryan is ever going to slacker in the gym. Dude's busted his tail quite a bit his entire life, but you can certainly see the results showing. And I hope what it is for him is some sustainability, where he's had some strength in the past, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy. Some of that has been just poor luck, and I think it's probably fair to wonder, has some of that been training? I don't know. But I hope he stays healthy. He needs to stay healthy. I don't need to see him with an 800-plus OPS. I don't know if that's even realistic at this point. Give me 750. Give me 760. One thing that I think is sort of a key with him, always has been a key with him, how's he handling fastballs? If he's pulling them at all, if he's getting any lift on the ball whatsoever. I still remember, man, now that we're in spring training, like these images come flooding back about watching him hit at LeCon in 2021 after his debut month. Dude's just lining balls, man. Driving balls to the gap, pull side. And, you know, then in the season, in the 2022 season, there are parts of it where he looks just like flat out feeble. I mean, he was clearly like, you know, not healthy, not 100%, but don't tell me that dude that was driving balls to the gap in 2021 isn't still around. And I do think he can get back to that if he's healthy.
Ridiculously talented player. And before we let you go here, Jason, we got to talk about another ridiculously talented player. And you're going to be talking to him before this probably even hits the airwaves. And that's going to be Bryan Reynolds, man. Like, what is just your, I don't know if it would be like last minute take on the situation or just your general feeling or what you've gathered from speaking to people as to what could go on with Bryan Reynolds this season.
Is Bryan Reynolds going to talk to us in the morning? I don't do a good Bryan Reynolds voice. I wish I did. Yeah, because I really like dealing with Reynolds. He's one of my favorites. He's a good dude and just he's funny. Got a good sense of humor. Anyway, so my sense with what happens to him is still I do expect him to get traded. I'd like to think in my pie in the sky view that there's some pathway to an extension, that they figure this thing out. I just don't, you know, in my heart of hearts, Craig, I don't see it happening. I don't see the Pirates bending where they need to bend, and I don't see Reynolds bending where he needs to bend. And, you know, I think for right now, it's probably in the Pirates' best interest to kick the can down the road. I know there's a concern about, you know, looking like they're acquiescing to a player and his demands, and, you know, somebody says they want to be traded, and we traded them. The deals, frankly, have, you know, been a little underwhelming for them, too. So I think that's part of it. But in the end, as much as I want to, you know, answer a question with my heart and say that I think they're going to come together on a deal, I see this thing going until about mid-season when some of his suitors get a little bit more desperate. Maybe the Yankees need a left fielder. Maybe the Rangers need somebody. They're willing to give up some of that young pitching they have. But something else affects this situation, and the Pirates at that point become moved enough to trade Reynolds.
Yeah, and I know, Jason, I think I want, you know, you to get out there as well, is that I believe you said before, which is something that, you know, Chris and I have kind of stood by, is that, you know, this deal needed to happen a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And that if it didn't happen then it probably just became less likely, and we just really didn't want to think about it.
The time to sign Bryan was after the 2019 season, in my mind. No, that would be impossible for the Pirates because they've underwent wholesale regime changes and whatever. And, like, I wouldn't expect Ben Cherington to come in here and sign a player he's never met to the, you know, largest contract in franchise history or something like that. But, I mean, you know, to me, that's why they need to get in front of O'Neal Cruz right now and get that done. You know, that's when you're going to get the best price. You need to take some calculated gambles. O'Neal Cruz is worth it. Bryan Reynolds would have been worth it. You know, because then you come back in 2020 with Reynolds, and I don't think that makes sense. That wasn't a, you know, if I'm Reynolds, I'm not signing that deal. Coming off the worst year of his life, and I don't feel like my value is complete at that point. And, you know, by 2021, you're probably thinking, like, the heck with it. You know, I'm already arbitration eligible. Like, you know, we've gotten this far. There's no turning back now. I don't know. But, yeah, I just they waited too long. And I'd like to see them not wait as long with O'Neal Cruz.
Yeah, well, Jason, you know what? You've given us a lot of great insight, and, you know, you're going to give us a lot more insight here coming up in, you know, the next few days here as people are listening to this. If you guys don't, I'm pretty sure most of you guys probably already do. Please go follow Jason at JMackeyPG. Read the stories at PG Sports Now. And then also, him and the Ford have a little podcast idea coming out here. Mac and Mac, and I have obviously not listened to it or anything at this point, but damn, I'm excited.